So I want to say something that a lot of retired dads don't say out loud. You did your best, your kids turned out okay, you love your grandkids, and yet your adult kids are drifting apart. Holidays are getting smaller, there's distance between them that you don't know how to fix. And in the quiet moments, you might start thinking, my kids aren't close. Does that mean I wasn't a good dad? Now, if that sounds uncomfortably familiar, this video is probably for you. So I want to talk about a couple of things. What it means when your adult kids drift apart, why trying to force everyone together can actually backfire, and why, even in the middle of all that, you may still be a better dad than you realize. So last week I got an email from a viewer. I'll just call him John. But John's retired. He's in decent health. He and his wife are comfortable. He's got two adult kids he says he's close with, good relationships with their partners, and six grandkids he absolutely loves. On paper, that sounds like success, right? Sounds pretty familiar to a lot of us. Most of us would look at that and say, oh, that guy did something right as a dad. But here's what he wrote. He said that his kids have always been close, but very different. But now, as they raise their families, they seem to be slowly drifting apart. Birthdays, Christmas, all the gatherings, uh, each family does it a little differently. He continued on saying that his internal struggle with this is about his own hopes and wishes versus the reality of how things are turning out, their actions. And he feels his heart slowly breaking. So he and his wife are supportive. They're not trying to control anyone. He just doesn't know what to do with that heartache. And underneath it, there's that quiet question so many of us carry. If my kids are not close to each other, does that mean I failed as a father? So that's what I want to talk about today. So a lot of that heartache comes from this simple gap: the family you imagined versus the family you actually have. And so for some of us, that imagined family came out or came along because of a hard childhood. Maybe you grew up in a broken home or chaotic with addiction, anger, emotional distance, and somewhere along the way you quietly promised yourself, my family is going to be different than that. My kids will be close. My grandkids will all grow up together and we'll do holidays right. You weren't chasing perfection, you were just trying to build something better than what you had. So when you get to this season, your kids are good people, you love your grandkids, but your adult kids aren't that close, and holidays are splitting into separate little islands. It pokes an old wound. Did I fail? Did I repeat what I was trying so hard to escape? Then on the other hand, there's some of us who had the opposite story. You think, man, I had it pretty good growing up, like close with all my siblings. We always had big family gatherings, a childhood that felt solid and safe. And so you just assumed, of course, my kids will grow up, stay close, and do the same thing. But when their adult lives don't look like that picture you're carrying around in your head, when reality comes along, they drift apart, build their own traditions. It can be jarring. Almost like, "Well, why doesn't that reality match? Why doesn't the reality match the story in my head?" Whether you were trying to escape a broken past or recreate a beautiful one, it hurts when the real family in front of you doesn't quite match the one you imagine. So, what are you supposed to do when your adult kids drift apart? And here's the part nobody really tells you as grandparents: you're not the project manager of your adult children's relationship anymore. When they were little, when they were kids, your job was to keep the peace, pull everyone together. But once your kids become parents themselves with their own families, your job changes. It's no longer your job to force joint holidays or guilt trip people into those group photos or fix every bit of tension between siblings. It is your job to love each of those families, make your home, low drama and high welcome, and be a safe and steady presence instead of a referee. And here's the warning I wish more of us heard. If you double down and really try to make everyone act the way you want, pushing, insisting, laying on the guilt, it almost always backfires. Instead of more togetherness, you're going to get more hard feelings, more of everybody feeling like they're walking on eggshells, and in a lot of cases, more distance from you. The very thing you're afraid of, your kids pulling away, can be made worse by trying too hard to control how close they are to each other. So there's a hard question we have to ask ourselves. Do I want to be in control or do I want to have connection? You can't have it both ways. So we like to think, well, if I just do everything right, better than my parents did, I can engineer the perfect close knit family. But families, people are not engineering projects, they're people. You can't control how close they are to each other. Can't control how they choose to spend holidays. You can't control their parenting styles, their calendars, their choices. But you can control how you speak about each of your kids when they're not in the room. You can control whether you respect their boundaries, even when you would do things differently. And you can practice gratitude for the family you do have instead of living only in the fantasy one you wish you had. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do in this stage of life is to quietly set down the script in our head, the way it was supposed to go, and ask, all right, well, what's my next faithful step as a dad, as a grandpa? Not ask, how do I fix everyone? So let me give you three simple, quiet ways to love your family without trying to force them into your mold. The first one would be invite without pressure. Instead of starting off with the guilt, we never get everyone together anymore. Instead, try, hey, we're having dinner on the 24th at 3. We'd love to have you. Come however it works best for you, no pressure. It's a clear invitation, a warm tone, and no guilt attached. You're opening a door, not trying to shove someone through it. And the second one is treat separate traditions as normal, not failure. Some of the best grandparent moments are small and one on one. A weekend with one set of the grandkids, a breakfast date with the other family. Even just a simple phone call or video chat, that still counts. And in fact, those smaller moments are often what the grandkids remember most, that you showed up for them, not just for some big family photo. And then the third thing is don't carry messages. If one child vents about the other, listen kindly, but don't become the messenger. A simple line you can use is, hey, well, have you told your brother that? Have you told your sister that? You can be a safe place without being the go between. You want to lower the temperature, not turn up the heat. So, one last thought, your family is still in the middle of its story. There are seasons of closeness and seasons of distance. Years when everyone is too busy raising kids to see each other much. And sometimes later, years when things soften and reconnect. You can't force that timing, but you can keep the porch light on. Keep your heart soft, keep your table open, keep your words gentle. So that if your kids ever want more connection with you or with each other, bridges haven't all been burned. Remember, your grandkids won't remember whether every Christmas looked like a perfect little postcard. They'll remember who showed up, who listened, who made them feel safe. They don't need you to fix their parents' relationships. They need you to be present in their lives. And that's something you can do. So if you're like my friend John, retired, proud of your kids, love your grandkids, but watching your adult children drift apart makes your heart ache, you're not failing. You're allowed to grieve the family picture you imagined, but still choose to love the real people standing in front of you today. You're allowed to feel that heartbreak without doubling down and trying to control everyone. You can support your family the best way you can without judgment and trust that the kind of quiet faithfulness matters more than you think. So, anyways, thanks for spending this time with me. Love your people well, and I'll see you in the next one.